Hey everyone, today we're sharing an inspiring story about courage and effort. Will it reignite the hope that overcomes all? Facing her husband's tearful plea, the wife's defenses crumbled in an instant. Her little universe exploded as Paul switched to full training mode, no matter the weather. His wife fully supported, tracking data, stretching, icing a true training guru. The couple marched hand in hand, like they were back in their glory days, and as marathon day loomed closer, the tension was building. Paul dreamt of making a comeback, while other seniors in the nursing home lost interest, making excuses to skip out and watch his training. They were like his enthusiastic fans, cheering him on, because his unstoppable spirit acted like a powerful magnet. Of course, this didn't include the nursing home's self-proclaimed king, who slammed the table, protesting that Paul disturbed. In the king's eyes, getting old meant accepting a fate of doing nothing. To him, past glories didn't matter anymore. But Paul disagreed. He strongly believed that as long as you're living, you should make it extraordinary, even if the body slowed down. His spirit could still cause a stir, but the king clearly didn't agree, so he called over a caregiver to throw some cold water on him. The racecourse is filled with young guns. How do you plan to beat them? The caregiver asked. Paul was momentarily speechless, and his wife lowered her head as whispers arose among the other seniors, but the word retreat was not in Paul's dictionary. Whether he could outrun the young ones or not, he would push forward. Paul boldly challenged the caregiver for a duel at 2 p.m. The young caregiver glanced at the frail old man before him and immediately agreed. However, this duel sparked a heated debate in the nursing home. After hearing about this, the therapist sought out Paul and recommended he ditch his life or death idea. Don't joke with your life. But Paul stayed upbeat and confident. Faced with his stubbornness, the therapist opted for a real-life case. There used to be an old man here who dreamed of going to Antarctica, but once he stepped out, he never returned. Paul fell silent, pondering, but he knew deep down, fight for dreams beats lying on a bed awaiting Antarctica. However, the road to chasing dreams is always bumpy. The therapist couldn't stop Paul, so he called in his daughter, hoping she might bring some clarity. The facility informed his daughter that Paul might be losing it since he completely disregarded the rules and had no schedule. They mentioned this matched the symptoms of mania and hoped she could persuade him to stop this madness. His daughter arrived at their dorm, trying to reason with him, but his mind was solely on training and racing, almost ignoring everything around. He even forgot to turn off the gas stove, nearly starting a fire. His daughter felt exasperated by her father's restlessness. She stormed off in anger, turning what should have been a joyful reunion into a sigh of farewell. Seeing his daughter against him, Paul felt crushed, but his wife comforted him, saying, "We're like the wind and the sea. Even if the world doesn't back you, it'll stay. Tomorrow's race will impress them." Next morning, sunlight bathed the land, banishing night's gloom, while a cool breeze in the park matched seniors' passion. They gathered early, hoping for Paul to pull off a miracle, but this was destined to be a battle of uneven power. One was a silver-haired senior, and the other a young buck, over 50 years apart in age. The caregiver couldn't resist mocking. "Want me to give you a 2-lap head start?" Paul didn't even flinch, and the caregiver took off, putting some distance between them. Meanwhile, the king was on the balcony, tending to his plants while secretly watching the race, a smug grin creepy across his face. Watching the caregiver lead the pack, he thought victory was assured, while Paul's wife reminded him to keep a steady pace. As the race reached the 8th lap, the caregiver remained far ahead, Paul absent, sparking murmurs among the seniors. Their confidence dwindled, except for one die-hard fan who remained steadfastly supportive of Paul. After the 10th lap, Paul closed the gap with the caregiver, much to the king's irritation. The die-hard fan was on fire, sharing Paul's story with everyone, claiming this looked just like the 1956 race. Back then, Paul was great at managing his stamina, turning the tables on his opponent at the last moment. He believed today would have a similar outcome, and just as he finished speaking, Paul caught up with the caregiver. The caregiver puffed, "Give me €200, and I'll let you win." Faced with temptation, Paul's conviction remained solid. The caregiver dashed off as only 2 laps remained. Paul fell behind again, and his wife grew anxious while the king sighed in relief. Everyone thought victory was in the caregiver's hand. Encouraged by his wife, Paul surged forward, and the caregiver was even mocked by Paul's wife, as if it were a sprint to the finish line. Overconfidence leads to failure. As the race entered its final lap, Paul began to pick up speed while the caregiver's energy dwindled. Watching Paul rapidly close the distance, the caregiver could no longer accelerate. With everyone's eyes glued to Paul's performance, Paul stormed through like a gust of wind, light yet firm, his steps full of strength as he steeled himself. Before reaching the finish, Paul sprinted all out, overtook rivals, and won like a legend. Joy of victory echoed throughout the park. Paul's silhouette stood tall as he proved that age is not a barrier. Belief and perseverance are the keys to victory, imparting a powerful lesson to the youngsters and inspiring the seniors as well. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. More inspiring stories are waiting for you.